Hello everybody, Earl Music here with Bourbon with your broker, and today my guest is Brian Perry. And Brian is a business owner here in Grangeville, but that's not why I'm talking to him tonight. I'm talking to him because he also happens to be the assistant chief here at the Grangeville Fire Department, and not just Grangeville City, but also the rural fire department around Grangeville. And so thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Earl.
And we're going to get started, and I'm really excited because I've been holding on to this for a while for somebody who would appreciate it, and I think you're going to. So this is Old Ezra, age 7 years. This is 117 proof. I think we're going to enjoy the heck out of this bourbon. And so, Brian, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Let's give you a good size pour. And then hook me up with a little bit. Oh, that smells good. And then we're going to get a clear ice cube in here. Oh, there we go. And there is something weird and satisfying about dropping an ice cube in your whiskey and spilling it everywhere. But that clear ice cube, I don't know, just looking down into your whiskey and you can just see right through there, and I don't know, it's just beautiful.
Yes, yes.
Brian, again, thanks a lot for joining me. And I just wanted to come and talk to you about the rural fire department, being a volunteer fire department. And it's a lot like the volunteer EMS here. It is a paid volunteer position.
Correct.
I mean, you're not going to get wealthy by any means.
No.
But there is some compensation. But what does it take for me to come and join and be ready to go out on a fire?
What it takes to become a good volunteer, to me, is what you're willing to put back into your community. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do not cover the calls like cities or TV depicts. We're very community-based. We do a lot of volunteerism within our community, with our schools, over holidays. We try to bring and keep our small town atmosphere the way that we cherish in rural communities. I really believe that my time is split in my fire department about 50-50 in between calls, mm-hmm. training, meetings, and then being a volunteer. Mm-hmm. So to me, I like to see guys that want to come onto our department that have roots in the community and just really want to deepen their roots mm-hmm. in the community. Mm-hmm. If you do not have compassion for other people in your community, it's going to get pretty mundane for you here.
Yep.
We still have active members on the department mm-hmm. that started on the fire department before I was born. Mm-hmm. And I'm 47.
Yep.
So,
well, John Sangster's my neighbor. I mean, he's been on it forever, and he just retired this last year.
Yes. And what we do with our senior members is they are a wealth of knowledge mm-hmm. for our young guys. Mm-hmm. Since we don't cover a large volume of calls, the younger members that aren't willing or aren't real receptive to sit down and mm-hmm. talk to the old war horses mm-hmm. of this department, they might never see anything like this in their career. Mm-hmm. We've had some fairly significant fires over the last 50 years, and I've been on since 2000, year 2000, mm-hmm. and some of the big fires I remember as a little kid, mm-hmm. but I'm on the department with guys that were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And take a chance to take a sip of this. This is fantastic whiskey. I mean, you can tell it's a high proof, but boy, I think that's smooth going down.
Super smooth.
I'm super happy with that.
Yes.
I knew it was going to be good.
No,
I knew it when I bought it, it was going to be good.
Exceptional. Yes.
Well, I tell you what, something that Grangeville Fire Department does here I think is fantastic is, one, 4th of July. Border Days is a huge thing here in Grangeville. I mean, everyone who ever graduated from Grangeville High School, that's their goal, is come back during 4th of
Yes.
July if they've left. And you guys put on one heck of a good fireworks show.
There's nothing more American than a rodeo,
Yeah.
big parades,
Yeah.
and big pyrotechnics.
The oldest rodeo in Idaho.
Oldest rodeo. And if anybody has an opportunity to come to this town, in town we're about 3,500 people, and I really feel the show that the fire department puts on, and with the graciousness of other businesses in the community that support us doing this fireworks show, we put on a show that will rival big towns.
Yep. I used to live in Boise, and I've been to Boise's, Meridians, Caldwell's, Middleton's. I've seen a lot of fireworks shows, and I don't think any of them are better than that get put on in Grangeville.
And at one time, we actually split our fire department and did fireworks shows for other towns, and it's a lot of work. And as support dwindles, it made us dig our heels in here and say Grangeville's going to be the last show that ever gets canceled.
Yep.
Even during the COVID shutdown, I take my hat off to my chief, and he said, "This is Grangeville, Idaho, and we are shooting a show regardless."
Yep.
And so we were fortunate enough, we dug our heels in, and our department raised the money ourselves. We didn't go out to our local businesses that were struggling during the shutdowns, and we put on a show to say that we're still here and we're going to be here forever.
And it was a great show. And actually, they weren't sure how well Border Days was going to be attended that year.
Yeah.
And it actually was pretty heavily attended.
Yes.
And nothing happened. It was a
good.
fantastic
It was
weekend.
good. It was a breath of fresh air to the people that were on the fence on how we were going to handle the pandemic.
Yep. And there's something else that they do here in town that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite things. Is every year during the month of December, you guys have a very old fire truck. What year is it?
1942 Buffalo.
1942 Buffalo, and it is decked out in Christmas lights, big speakers, Christmas music, and you put Santa Claus on that and drive it all over town every single night during the month of December.
Every single night of December. It actually kicks off the tree lighting at Pioneer Park. We try to run it in town. We try to run it out of town. And it really tells you how special our community is, because during the holiday times, there's folks from out of town visiting family that have never seen anything like this. And it's big to give back to the kids, and even make little kids out of grown-ups.
Oh yeah, it's my kids are starting to get older, but I tell you what, a few years back, you guys rolled through and you said, "Music family, Merry Christmas," and the kids turned to me and said, "Santa knows where we live."
Yes.
Like, this is so awesome. And this year, my neighbors across the street, they have 4 young boys, and boy, every time you guys drove by, they were out there in their underwear,
Yes.
in the cold, and they were so excited to see Santa Claus roll on by.
There are a lot of folks that don't realize what they're dressed in when they run to the window.
Yeah, I bet.
So Santa does have red cheeks, but it's a good time.
But that brings up I got a beef with the Grangeville Fire Department. Is I've had a few people ask me to join, and I think mostly because I'm a fat bearded guy. But
exceptional Santa material.
But they say I have to shave my beard, and I go, well, that completely defeats the purpose.
I bet we could find a mulligan for somebody.
I think we should, because like I said, not everyone needs to put an oxygen mask on and run in the house.
Yes.
Somebody's got to drive the truck and pull the hose.
Yes.
So we might have to work that out so that I can get involved into the fire department here.
Yes. Another thing that our fire department does that I think it's a pro and a con to somebody who appreciates a good fire. Granted, we don't ever want to see anything bad happen, but we train a lot to do what we do. But we started a program, Fire Prevention Week. We go to all the local daycares. We go to all the local church groups that have Sunday schools. We go to the kids club. We go to the elementary school. We go to St. Peter and Paul. And one of the things that we are aware of is kids don't lie.
Yeah.
Not to firemen.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And we actually have a big fire department. When you educate 400 kids about checking smoke alarm batteries, having evacuation plans, ladders in upstairs windows. One of the things that we really push on families and children is sleep with your doors closed. It exponentially makes survivability of a fire so much higher.
I did not know that.
Do not be scared of the dark.
Yep.
Be scared of fire and open doors. So when we send all these little volunteer troopers back to their parents, a lot of parents are tired of us.
Yeah, I bet.
But I guarantee you in this town during Fire Prevention Week, 9-volt batteries spike, smoke alarm spike.
I'm guilty. The fire alarm right outside of my bedroom. The battery's out of it and the door's open. I probably should get that replaced.
But it's important to us, and I think we have vastly decreased accidental fires. And I rather be proactive than reactive on a fire department.
Yep, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And another big thing is clean your chimney out.
Yes.
I've got a neighbor, I think you guys go there twice a year.
Yes.
And so get your chimney cleaned. It's not too difficult.
And when you clean your wood stove, don't put it in your trash can.
Yeah.
Yes, we save a lot of melted trash cans.
Yeah. Don't smoke and fall asleep.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's probably not as big a deal as it was back in the day,
But I think instead of being a fire department, we have switched more into educational. And it isn't just the little kids, it's the folks moving into the area and they want to buy the house out in the woods, and the brush and the trees are hiding their house.
For sure, yeah.
They will find out that fire is real here.
Yep. And I could be wrong, we didn't plan this at all, but if somebody moves into our area, especially when they get up into the mountains around the trees and brush and that kind of stuff, is there somebody here, and I'm sure there is, if they called in, that would go up and kind of do a site evaluation and say, you might want to try to cut these trees, remove this brush, and really make a defensible area around your house? That's
a great point, Earl. If anybody wants to contact one of the ranking officers of the fire department or City Hall, the rural fire department will come out. We call it a red zone evaluation of your property. We are not really, we don't want to come in your house. We don't want it, it isn't our business. Things that people don't think of is a big thing. Know who your power supplier is. Because we live in a mutual zoned power grid. It can either be a Vista or REA, ICP. We need to know that so we know who to call, and we need to know not to kill power because it kills power to your well. And if we have a wildland urban interface fire, say we just got brush, we have a forest fire coming towards you, the last thing I want to do is kill power to your property to where you have no way of any defendable space. We also look at secondary exposures on your property, like propane tanks, fuel storage. I'm not a big fan of juniper bushes and pine needles and wood decks. most houses will survive a flashover style fire quite well. It's the debris where the embers sit, the fire's gone, you're gone,
Yep.
and it has time to work.
Yep.
That's when houses burn.
And you know, something that kind of scares me is almost, not that I was an expert and really follow, but the Paradise, California area. I can see something like that happening here. I mean, we've got forests just right outside of town. And the wind, when it blows here, it typically blows southeast.
Correct.
And I've always been scared, like if we got a big fire going on in these mountains outside of us, which I wish, and the Forest Service, the local Forest Service
Exceptional.
is working on clearing that out and is doing a fantastic job. But boy, if a fire got out of control there and the wind blew, I mean, it could easily come into town here.
We always say that the very first thing that the Oregon wind hits is Grangeville. And if you look southeast, you're staring at Oregon.
Yep.
There's nothing to block it
Yep.
except for the Camas
Yep.
Prairie. So, yeah, I really think education, I'd rather be proactive, like I say, than reactive on a fire department. The last thing I ever want to do is come to anybody's house and say you are non-defendable and move on. It's a hard thing for a fire department to do. I much rather show up and talk with somebody before an emergency and say, hey, if you change these 5 things, I will commit manpower and equipment to your place because I believe I can save it. If they don't heed the warning, not my fault.
Yep.
And I will save your neighbor's house that listened to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do make the hard choice between privacy and aesthetics and survivability.
Yep. And you know, and another thing that just occurred to me too is there are areas in our county that are not in any kind of a fire district.
Yes.
And so if you move here, that's something you might ask your realtor if
Yes.
you are in a fire district. And just because you're not doesn't necessarily mean you can't get in one. But
Correct.
Some people go, oh, I don't want that extra $3 a year on my property taxes.
Correct.
And take the risk of having a fire and them just being out there unprotected.
In a little bit of dry humor, for folks that are coming into the area looking at a tax roll, you will be taxed every year for the rest of your life on a cemetery district. You can only use them once.
Yeah, right?
You can call your fire department 365 days out of the year, 24 hours a day, numerous times, and we will not raise your taxes.
Yep. I had a client just, it was about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and she was out cleaning up her property. She started a little fire like people do 100 times a year, and she was working over here, and the wind started to blow, and she turned around, and all of a sudden her whole property was on fire.
Yes.
Grangeville showed up. Idaho Department of Land showed up. I think Forest Service showed up. I don't think anyone had anything to do. But the fire got put out. It burned a little bit into the neighbors, but very little. Didn't cause any real damage, but you guys got to put it out. And I happened to have it under contract at the time. And it was a big deal because we needed to get some letters that no one was going to charge her for this fire. And luckily that was the case and we got it closed. But that's a prime example of something simple that you've done maybe 100 times in your life, all of a sudden gets out of control.
Yes. It happens every year. We're used to it. Don't ever be scared to call. We will come regardless.
Yep. I got another story real quick too. My dad lives along Highway 95, the main north-south highway in the state of Idaho. Some motorhome caught on fire and he pulled into my dad's driveway. And he's on fire and my dad kind of puts it out, helps him, and it starts up again. It was probably a Ford. And anyways, the fire department out of Cottonwood shows up. That's my dad's fire district, and they put it out. And then they sent him a bill, and he goes, "Wait a minute, I'm in the fire district." And they said, "Oh, no, you're not." And he said, "Yeah, I am. When I bought my property, I wasn't, and I made specifically sure to get put into it." And then they called him back and they said, "You're right. You're not. You are in the fire district." But the main thing was they were going to charge him for somebody else's fire that pulled onto his property. But once they discovered he was in the fire district, then it was taken care of.
And that brings up a good point, because we have a very large rural fire district, and it was set up quite uniquely when it was set up. And the founding fathers decided that if you owned over 40 acres when the district was created, you had the right to either opt in or opt out. Most of them opted out. So
because it was farm ground, they didn't have a house or
yes,
yeah.
And guys aren't real super worried about a hay field or range ground. And now development has come to our area, and fire is a real thing. It is much harder to put out a $500,000 house with no hydrants, no water supply around it, than it is a hay field. We will always run, regardless if you're in district or out, for one reason, and that's preservation of human life.
Yeah.
I will never ever say no to a call because they do not pay taxes. The hard part is I will protect human life, and of course animals are children. We will save your children, two-legged, four-legged, and you, but I will not actively involve a bunch of equipment and personnel, because my ultimate responsibility is to my tax-paying district. People have a hard time understanding that, but fire departments are not the golden cow anymore. People sue. And it's a real thing that if I'm involved in a fire out of district, and I can be proven that I was delayed to respond to an in-district fire, I am liable. I will preserve human life. Sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Yep.
And when it boils right down to it, sometimes really tough, uncomfortable decisions have to be made.
And the taxes here are so low.
They,
In our area, they are so low. And I love that we keep our government here on a tight budget.
checks and balances.
But it's
definitely.
funny because we get a lot of, I will say it, there's Californians that move into our area, and they will bring up, what are my property taxes? And then I'll tell them, and they go, oh, that's a month? And I go, no, that's for the year. They go, what?
Right.
And so taxes here are so cheap.
Yes.
And a few more dollars going to the fire department, the EMS. It's just, I mean, it's just good for our whole community.
Yes.
And everyone.
We do, when you come to rural Idaho or any rural area in any state, there are going to be sacrifices that people don't really understand that they're making. We pride ourselves on being super self-sufficient. You know, if I have an issue in my life, I don't look for somebody else to solve it. I have ways of doing it myself. And that's where newer people coming to this area have got to look at. There's pros and cons. If you want somebody to save you at every corner, stay where you're at.
Yep. And that goes back to just being, I mean, self-sufficient, but calling you up, making your place defensible.
Yes.
Doing the steps to help, because we're not downtown San Francisco. There is not a fire station every 4 or 5 miles with EMTs and paramedics and paid firemen that are on the clock 24 hours a day. This is volunteer.
Yes.
And a lot of this is, be prepared to kind of help take care of yourself. And our community's great. It's going to show up and help you.
Yes.
But don't be a fool.
Don't start the stopwatch.
Yeah.
Had an interesting fire several years ago in our Earl district. Garage, fully involved, went to the ground. I went out because of my business to replace some things that was destroyed in the fire. They did not recognize me in street clothes versus my turnout gear. And they said, yeah, it really took a long time for the fire department to get there. And I says, long time? And they said, yeah. And I says, well, move closer to the fire department.
Yeah, right?
I said, simple. I said, if the farther you move away from town, the farther you are from help.
Yeah.
And I hope I handled it professionally. I think I did, but people still need to realize
there's a million reasons why I'd rather live where we do than a big area.
Yes.
I mean, I lived in Boise and I wouldn't trade that again for anything. But there are trade-offs.
There are trade-offs.
And and if you recognize those and be prepared for them, then you're better off.
Yes.
But just don't expect, like I said, that there's not going to be a fire station 3 miles away with 10 hunky guys sitting up there, ready to come down the pole the second you call them.
Yes.
They're at home, they're asleep, and they have to jump up, run in here, get geared up, get their vehicles, get out and find you. And so it is a different situation.
And we do take a lot of pride. We have some very ambitious members. Once in a while, you got to pull the reins back a little bit. But, through my 20 years of being on the fire department, one thing that I always learned, if you go out to dinner with your family, the wife always has your wallet. If you go to the movies, you never hold the popcorn. I have showed up in full tuxedo, left a wedding, told the groom, sorry, gotta go. And he kind of gave me that blank stare like, hey, I'm getting married right now. And I said, there's a fire right now, gotta go. And it isn't that I put the fire department above everything else, but what makes a good volunteer is you were always willing to volunteer. And that's who we are. I have 24 of the greatest guys on the fire department, guys and gals. They give so much back to the community without wanting to be in the spotlight. Running the Santa Claus truck, driving late at night, and just saying, Merry Christmas, music family. And it's really who we are when you can drive around town and trade the mic back and forth because, I know who lives there. There's very few houses that we don't know who lives there.
Exactly.
So, and I wouldn't trade my 20 years on here for any other organization.
If anything in this thinks that interests you, if you want to come on and be a part of the fire department, you can reach out to them. They'll help you get ready to go.
Yes.
They're going to make a rule so I don't have to shave, but I can drive around and be Santa Claus.
That's right.
I'm loving that. And so thank you so very much.
Thank you, Earl.
Everyone, please remember, always enjoy your adult beverages responsibly. I also want you to know Brian is not on call tonight, and so it is perfectly safe that what we're doing. I also want to thank Grangeville Fire Department for allowing us just to set up in here and have this great backdrop for our video. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to meeting you again on the next Bourbon with Your Broker.